Welcome to the weekly governance voice. We're talking matters governance here, and yet we have a sector that definitely needs as well governance. We're talking about the education sector. What's happening there, and what are some of the issues that could really need governance as well, and much more? We want to shed some light on that. And in the house, we have CS Owen Koimburi, who's going to help us in explaining to us what's really happening down there, especially in the education sector. Before we get into the conversation, let's get to know him on his profile. CS Owen Koimburi, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Maina.
It's good to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Excellent, excellent. And we're talking matters governance in the education sector.
Yes.
This is big. When I just think about the education sector, especially in our country, I'm sure this is what we call a behemoth of things. But first, let's talk about the unique governance challenges faced in education institutions, especially, and how we can mitigate this, because that's where it starts.
Thank you. And you're right in saying that the education is a major sector.
Big player.
Indeed, if you look back at even the history of Kenya, one of the basic things that as a nation we aspired and we fought for was to gain education, of course, amongst other things.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you want to look at education as the driver of any economy.
Yeah.
And education then gives knowledge, gives expertise.
Absolutely.
And those are the drivers of modern economy, wherever it is.
Yeah.
And so more than any other time, education is critical in our nation. And especially also when you look at the demographic pattern and see that the country is comprised of more young people than the older people.
Yeah.
So it is important that enough time, enough effort, enough resources are channeled towards this sector.
You're right.
So that it can be the engine to grow the aspirations of the young people of this country and ultimately the economy. Yeah. When you talk about the challenges of the education sector, I would say that across the divide, because you have basic education, you have tertiary education, you have university education, I think top is corruption.
Yeah.
And then you have inadequate resource allocation. And I think you also then need to look at the aspects of resource, the aspect of compliance, and lack of commitment and consultations with the stakeholders.
Wow. And
if you can speak about the topmost problem in this country, when I talk about corruption, of course we know you and I have read of situations whereby universities haven't paid employees contributions to NSF pay as you earn for many years. Many of them cannot account for pension contributions. So this is an open fact that everybody knows.
You're right.
But I want to also talk about compliance, because if we had compliance, and this is where the governance comes in, then some of these problems could be mitigated. There are enough laws in this country, covering the education sector. And let me start with the Constitution of Kenya, 2010. Yeah. Because you have Article 53 that talks about each and every child is entitled to basic education. Yeah. And then you have Article 55, which gives a responsibility to the state to provide education to all the Kenyans.
Yes.
And not just education, but quality education. And it talks about also the affirmative action that is in the Constitution.
Yeah.
When you talk about the affirmative action, then you're talking about all the gender, both girls and boys to be given equal educational opportunities. Of course, it also talks about marginalized communities also to be given equal opportunities. So those are the challenges that are there, but it is not for want of legislation. The laws are there.
Yeah.
You have the TSC Act, which clearly stipulates the relationship between the teachers and the employers. You've got the Basic Education Act of 2013, which again talks about the basic education.
Okay.
Then you've got the Council for University Education.
Yeah.
There's an act of parliament to that.
Yeah.
So we have enough framework, regulations, laws, which if we comply, if we implement, then we would cure the majority of the problems in the education sector.
Okay.
I look at education and I look at governance. If I can maybe jump over from governance.
Bring that in.
Governance is about people. It's about systems. It's about stakeholders and compliance.
Yeah.
And if we can be able to get the matrix right in those 4 principal variables, I think we should be good.
Speaking about that, especially on strong governance, because you've alluded to some of the challenges. Number one being corruption, which is a big thing, because if we also rooted that out, a lot of us, you've said, cure would start definitely a lot.
Yes.
I wanted to talk about the strong governance perspective in the education sector. And how does this, if it was implemented, strong governance, how does it really contribute to accountability, academic integrity, and also operational efficiency? What would you say in a short comment?
Governance is, I said, about people.
Yeah.
And therefore, you're talking about having the proper people in the right places. Governance is about the systems. So you're looking at having proper systems in institutions.
Yes.
Governance, of course, is about compliance. And when we talk about compliance, that is everything. If you want to comply with the employment law, it is there.
Excellent.
If you want to comply with financial management, it's a whole area, because we have financial management laws and regulations as well.
Yes.
For example, anybody who is employed in the public sector, as far as education is concerned, and many of them are there, you've got the Public Management Procurement Act. So that again spells out what you need to do.
Excellent.
You've got the framework of budgeting and accounting.
It's there.
So if we had the minimum compliance in those areas, then we'll be able to achieve sustainable organizations.
Lovely.
And once you have a sustainable organization, whether it is a university, whether it is a secondary school, an institution, whether it is a professional firm, because professional firms like our Institute of Certified Secretaries, even that is in the education sector.
Excellent.
If you have strong systems there, then, and that means you have proper people there, then you have an organization that is strong, which can stand on its own, that is financially sustainable, and then can drive the agenda of the strategic plan if they do have one.
Very true, and very rightfully put. So in all this, the challenges, the opportunities, what can be done and what we can achieve, we have the corporate secretaries, the certified secretaries. And I wanted to ask you, for us to achieve this robust governance we talked about, what's their role of these CSs in helping us achieve this?
Well, good question. The bottom right there is the system. Our institute would play a very significant role there. One, it is training. We have very robust training modules, training courses, where many of the people who are in senior management positions, whether you're talking about universities or you're talking about even the ministry itself, because there's a policy aspect of education that needs follow-up. So if you have policymakers coming to institutes for training, then they will acquire the necessary skills that are needed.
Yeah.
So institute can also play a major role in capacity building across.
Yeah.
And they can roll out training modules. They can provide tools that are needed.
Okay.
Because tools, whether it is a manual, I know our institute can produce even board manuals, and those are documents that are very important.
Yeah.
They can provide specialized training courses on any of these laws that we are talking about. So our institute would play a very significant role in that area. But also, if we have many of our members being appointed to the boards of these organizations,
yes,
they will be able to bring about the needed changes. If it was, put in law that, any of the Senate, university senators, committees of education, there will be a member of the board who is a CS. He will be able to give guidance about governance. If also there was a requirement that each one of them would have a secretary, which is very important because you have meetings and you don't have minutes.
Yeah.
If you don't have minutes, then there is no follow-up. There's something in management that if you can't measure something, you cannot control it.
Absolutely.
You can only measure it if, for example, you have minutes of our last meeting. This is what was discussed. This is the action plan. So to take particular action.
Yeah.
So again, it would be important that we emphasize that whoever is going to be a company secretary in education sector be a qualified CS, or if not, has attained, they can go for mandatory courses at the institute. And we have very many courses that would aid and support the governance structure. Because at the end of the day, Maina, is having somebody at the meeting to be listened to, somebody who says, yes, this is what we discussed, and this is the matters arising. And if you have then issues, what are the matters arising? These things will not have arisen.
Happen, that's true.
And therefore, that is why our role would be very significant.
CS Owen, as you're speaking, I'm thinking a lot of these education sectors, whether it's whether it's institutions or organs that have been put in place, they have boards. So, but from what you've said, then it simply means all these boards needs to ensure that within them they have a CS seated within them.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes.
Thank you so much for that. I wanted to ask you, from your own experience, some of the pitfalls in governance that you've seen, or what I could say, some of the common governance pitfalls, some of the things that they have done that is really, I would call them risks that you have seen, observed in education, and what steps can institutions take to avoid such pitfalls? What are some of the things that you've observed? The
critical issue, again, we go is corruption.
Corruption,
okay?
Again.
That's number one. I think number two would be lack of meritocracy. In the sense that because of nepotism and favoritism, we have wrong people in the places that they should not be. And then of course political meddling. Okay.
There's a lot.
You have seen even universities. We should be university in any country is a citadel of education. It is succinct. You cannot touch education at that high level. But you have somebody saying, no, this person cannot be appointed the VC because he doesn't come from this area.
We have seen that. It's bad.
And you see delegations come to universities and, So that's political interference is something that we should avoid as much as possible.
Yes.
The other challenge, of course, that I've seen, which is a threat to governance, is lack of monitoring and evaluation. Because to be honest, Maina, if there was proper monitoring and evaluation, which means review of action. If you have mismanagement, there's action that has been taken. So, and not just changing people, but action to be taken, real action to be taken, so that people who have misgoverned, if I may use the terminology, are then punished accordingly.
Yeah.
The other aspect is, and we have something called mwongozo. Mwongozo is a code, and our institute was involved in that, in drawing up that. But it is a code of conduct that every public institution should comply with, and heads of those departments should comply with. If you look at that code, it is very straightforward.
Okay.
What can be done, what should not be done.
Excellent.
So I think what we have, the problem has been lack of the will, if you like, to implement changes where we see challenges in the education sector.
Yeah.
So that needs to be looked into. Then also there is lack of consultations. Stakeholders ought to be consulted. When you talk about stakeholders in schools, you're talking about schools management committees.
Yes.
That's a key stakeholder.
Very true.
Are we involving them in the changes that we are doing? The other one, of course, is the students and the parents. Key stakeholders. Are we consulting them? Are we involving them in the change? So if we address those issues, those challenges, I think we can start seeing some improvement in the education sector.
Lovely. Just off the hook, CS Owen, just thinking about what is bedeviling us, because in your responses, 2 of the responses have touched on the big thing, corruption. And you're thinking, CS Owen, and think with me here, it's not that we lack proper people, but probably those proper people have been infiltrated, as you have said.
Yeah.
And so that's a governance issue.
That's a governance issue.
And if we keep repeating this and churning students who are not being taught in the proper ways of doing things, we'll end up just messing up not only the institutions we go to run, but also all the positions that we hold. And overall then, trying to root out corruption would be a big trouble. If there was a reverse and giving you all the powers that you would have as CS Owen and you were told to deal with corruption in this country, especially in the education sector, what would you do? Just putting you on the spot.
That's a tough question, because we know it's not as easy as said than done.
You're right.
But my philosophy is, of course, all these things start with you and me.
Yes, that's true.
Even if you talk about corruption and lack of governance, it starts with you and me.
You're right.
So I wouldn't want to deal with it from an abstract perspective.
Okay.
I would be keen to sit with the stakeholders. For me, it's stakeholders themselves.
Yeah.
So that however bad a situation is, if I was being thrown into an institution in whatever it is, I would first start with the people that are already there, that I find there.
Yeah.
And we start looking at what do we have, rather than what must we have. What do we have?
Yeah.
Because if you start from what you have basic institutions, we got them. You have students are there. You probably have the teaching staff are there. That is where I would start. And start involving the stakeholders. I will not even look at policies that are there. First look at stakeholders. There's the management themselves, the school management committees. Sit down with them and ask them, this is our institution, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
And this is where we are, especially if we have financials and they are telling us where we are, this is where we are. Then we start looking from that area, what can we do? And these are the resources that we have.
Yeah.
If we don't have resources, what can we do with lack of resources? Because we did not start with it. Education is not institution. It's not buildings. Education is the will. Education is the people. Of course, there is the level of science where you need infrastructure. And again, there is a lot of infrastructure in this country. Most of it, not utilized. And that is where I will start. I will not start about accusing someone. So of course, if there's somebody who has, mismanaged, the law is there. But I will start looking at this is the institution, ABC, university, whatever it is. This is what we have been governed to do. We have been accredited to offer these courses. Go back to the Act. What does our Act says? Because each and every institution has got the Act of Parliament. If universities, you've got, Commission of University Education. Make sure that we are very clear what we need to do. And it's not so much the money we have, but the time that we're going to allocate, because I also think there is a lot of misgovernance of time in this country. That if we just allocated adequate time in doing some of the things that we must do, would be very far. Better. It would be very far.
I love that. I know that was a mouthful, but thanks so much for really giving us that. As we come to a close, there must always be a thought process of, we are saying these are the solutions, that we need to instill proper governance in institutions of learning so that we can have proper outcomes in our education system.
Yes.
But what is also the other potential that we would ever see potential consequences of poor governance in the sector, and how can institutions prevent these outcomes? What would you say that? Because I'm sure you have seen some that really just decided not to listen.
Outcomes must be a result of input. There's something that you are put to get output.
Yes.
If you don't put in input, you don't get the output. If you put the wrong input, you get wrong output.
Yeah.
But in terms of maybe going forward, there are what I would call the quick gains that we can make.
Yes.
The quick gains are with the infrastructure that we have, that this country has good policies. So that's what I would go for.
Yes.
The policy, whether you talk about the CBC, whether you talk about university education, we have frameworks that are already there. So that's where I would start.
Yeah.
I will then look at the people that we have, because it is true, people are everything. Now, Kenya boasts of having best brains, or some of the best brains.
Yeah, we are touted.
We are touted.
Yes.
But unfortunately, in many cases, we are not doing too well in making use of those resources, unfortunately. But we do have. We have a huge potential of young people, very, very educated, very, very strong. And I have very great faith in young people, especially in this country. They are very sharp. Given the opportunities, you don't have this workforce anywhere. I would also look at something that people are talking about, and we have no choice, is artificial intelligence, AI. And I'm very careful also, because if AI is not utilized properly, without proper framework or things that work, without system, AI would be ideal with systems that work. But in the wrong hands, it can be disastrous. But if we can use it, and I keep saying AI is not something that is new. The calculator, which is very basic, that is where the artificial intelligence started. So that if you're not counting, you can put but right now it's gone to very high levels.
Absolutely.
I listened to one of the people that have been associated with AI for a long time, Bill Gates. And he said there are only two areas that he thinks AI will not enter, and that is surgery and cooking. But everything else is now going to be subject to AI. So how can we position our institutions to take advantage of artificial intelligence? And especially distributing knowledge. We can reduce even the expenditure that we're talking about. Even the buildings that we've been talking about, the infrastructure, probably will not be necessary. Because you can have virtual classes now. One resource person can teach thousands of students. So that's the area that we need to go. But we need to get our processes or procedures right, even before we can introduce these technologies that are taking over. But we have no choice.
Yes.
We have to embrace it because that is where the whole world is going.
Wow, great lines of the potential we have as well. And of course, I think actually CSO, when you alluded to the fact that we have seen institutions here in this country go down south because they simply decided to bring in those, low cards of tribalism, low cards of corruption and the likes, and institutions just end up going down, and they were great institutions. And we certainly hope you will never go down that line. But before we end, Bwana CSO, there's also the balance. A lot of institutions are now very keen on saying we want to achieve excellence, academic excellence, especially financial stability and sustainability as well. They want to just be. And then they might forget that there is effective governance that is needed for that to be achieved.
Yeah.
How should they balance the two to ensure, yes, they are achieving this, as well as ensuring they have effective governance in their plate?
It's very easy to say, this is what we want to do.
Yes.
And I've seen many strategic plans with wonderful visions and missions.
Yes.
And we want to be this centers of excellence. But centers of excellence don't just happen. So part of that strategic plan should also be the strategic objectives and how to achieve them. And achieving them, again, is not something in abstract. You must meet every so often and evaluate. So how can we achieve that? Is to be able to make short-term and long-term goals and be faithful to those goals and be accountable to those goals.
Yeah.
And for that reason, to be subjected. And that's why I go back to the Mwongozo Code of Conduct.
Yes.
Because it has tools to measure your performance. It even has performance contracts. Because whether we like it or not, if I have not performed well, I should not be in this position.
Yeah.
We have to accept that as a people, as a country, that we cannot reward, mediocrity. So that's the way I would look at it.
Yes.
Have a way of measuring your performance, have targets set up, and then be true to those targets.
You're right.
But at the same time, consult as much as possible to the stakeholders.
Yeah.
So, having strategic plans are good, but we also need to invest. And there's a very important point.
Yeah.
Africa is spending less than 1% of their GDP on research.
Oh.
Less than 1%. Now, research is everything because it gives you scenarios.
Yeah.
It helps you plan, and we are not strong. And I'm being very modest to say we are not strong on research. We
need to do that.
We need to do a lot more.
Yes.
Scientific research based on, you speak to people and ask them.
Yeah.
And the real people. And at the same time also implement that research. We have very many research organizations in ministries and in central government where we have not acted on it.
I see.
But research is key to the education sector. Because it gives you the areas of improvement, including the resources that you need to move from point one to point B. So that's what I would say. So it has to be more about evaluation to see where we are at every level of education sector. Map our needs, because it's very important that we map out our needs.
Yeah.
We haven't created employment. We are now exporting our staff to other countries. It's a good thing. But no country has ever developed by sending their people out.
Yes.
Let's focus on what opportunities can we create here in this country.
Yeah.
These young guys that you see here, each one of them, if you ask them, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
They will tell you, I would like to do this and that.
Yeah.
if there's a way of now putting that as a base and funding it, then that is education that we should be talking about. Okay. Identifying the needs of our people and how to address them and supporting them.
Yeah.
And for me, that's the future of proper governance in this country.
Lovely. You know, my questions that I have planned for you are over, but I want to ask you a random one. So when you look at our education, a lot of parents, when I told them that I'm going to be speaking about education today, a lot of parents, especially the ones with young people who are in this new, because we as a nation, we transitioned to a new curriculum and all this. We also have the international curriculums that are present, all those kind of things. And it's okay. Each will choose what they feel can befit them.
Yeah.
But when I look at it, it's not that there's problems with the curriculum. I think, personally, the problems probably are within the people that are managing this.
Yeah.
And, you know, the boards, the governance structures and all that. But I wanted to ask you, those are my own thoughts.
Yes.
What do you think? What do you think is happening?
Well, I would agree largely with you.
Yes.
We have got 2 new policies introduced.
Yes.
Too rapidly. And that is a major problem.
It's a big problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because you are introducing them in an atmosphere of economic hardships where people don't have money.
Yeah.
And most of the things that you're introducing them have to do with additional expenditure.
Yeah.
And whether it is additional books, whether it is additional money for construction or teachers, that is additional expenditure. If you can go back to history, and I was there when the 844 system was introduced. And I didn't go through the 844 system myself, but I've seen, you know, most of people that I've interacted with. There was a very rigorous process of changing the old system that we took over from the colonial government to the 844 system. We had a professor, he was called 𝐎𝐰𝐞𝐧 who was contracted from Canada, one of the top universities in Canada. And he was here for about a year.
Yes.
You know, carrying out research and finding out what needs to be done. What they identified is that there was a mismatch between education and industry. What we need. Do we need engineers? Do we need accountants? Do we need doctors? And that is the birth of the 844 system.
Yes.
So it was very well thought through.
Yeah.
And for that, I think it has lasted.
It has done its part.
Until then the CBC system was introduced, which was done. Again, you need to look at what are the demands of the economy and change accordingly. And for that reason, I think it was introduced well. There were things that were identified that were weak with the old system, especially the qualifications.
Yes.
We are holding too many good people behind simply because of exams. But I believe now when you start listening to what is going on, there is lack of infrastructure, which should have been thought out. People are suffering because they just don't have money. Then, of course, even the students, the choice, if I can talk about the university placement, the new funding model, of course, that's
another one.
That's in a mess because it's not working for majority of the people. I haven't had anybody who have said it's working. Part of the problem, they said the students themselves, they gave the wrong information, which again is some of the problems that we should be focusing about our students and educating them well enough, nicely. Because somebody said that they went to the bureaus, they completed the wrong things. It went to the university, then it was wrongly. But you don't do that sort of thing and just, there ought to have been a pilot run.
Let's see how it's going.
Let's see how it is going. There should not have been a rush to implement it. I believe it was working, even as a CBC system. There were just a few problems here and there. So our problems, if we sit down and try and analyze, finding out where the problem is,
Yes.
and sorting them internally would get us to where we need to go. But I believe we've introduced too many things in an economy that is weak.
Yeah.
And only parents can pay school fees.
You're right.
And in a situation whereby we don't have that workforce to do proper analysis and guidance, and in a global economy that is also weak, not supporting us.
Yeah.
So I would agree when you said there is a people who have been implementing that that have a problem.
Yeah.
I would agree largely. And I again, it's lack of governance. Again, if we have proper governance in those institutions, proper people who are well trained, well meaning, of course, without personal interest. I think there has been a lot of personal interest in education sector. Wow. And therefore, if you have personal interest, then governance structures go out because you want to dismantle structures that hold you accountable. And for that reason, therefore, lack of accountability is what results from bad governance.
Yeah.
And lack of accountability, proper misgovernance, which is lack of governance, then will lead to very poor results. If you're looking at the students, it's poor students. Well, no, not in that sense, but quality of education.
Yeah.
Quality of education goes down. We cannot compete even with our neighbors.
Yeah.
We cannot compete even internationally. And that is essence. Other economies are pumping billions into the education sector.
Absolutely.
From basic education all the way.
Yeah.
I think we've not had a coherent policy, legal framework. So I hear the same issues that I'm a parent. So I also identify with the challenges that your parents have gone through. So my advice back to your parents who have consulted you, they should not give up. And there is something that people don't realize. You can educate your children. There's home education. Homeschooling. Yes. And I know a lot of missionaries. My son is a missionary and they've done homeschooling for their kids. Only a parent has, maybe, the parent has the best interest of their kids.
You're right, yes.
I don't think any parent would. We entrust children to schools because we have faith.
Yeah.
In what they're going to learn. And that is a structure that has been set up.
Okay.
But there are other alternatives.
Yes.
And the one I mentioned is homeschooling.
Yeah. And
you can do it. My son has done it, and many other missionaries, because if you find education, it's expensive.
Yeah.
And you can homeschool them for as long as is possible. There will be a place where they must go out at university.
Right. Yeah.
But at the basic level, you can do it because you've got the if you have the curriculum, then you know it and you can do it.
You can do it.
I'm saying this so that parents who have spoken to you don't think it's completely hopeless.
Yes.
But again, also, there should be as much lobbying. I'm happy that there's a lot of lobbying that is going on.
Yes.
We should not relax the lobbying. Through the lobby groups, through our churches, through our elected people that we elect.
Yes.
I think that conversation should continue.
Okay.
But let's also build on what we have. Let's not throw out everything.
Excellent.
There must be something that is good, but we must emphasize, especially governance structure in the institutions.
Yeah.
Just emphasizing that we have proper people in proper management and we hold them accountable. The school management committee, we must hold them accountable.
Okay. CS Owen Koimburi putting it as it is, that listen, we must ensure that wherever we are, especially in an education institution and anywhere that touches on education, that we have proper governance. And I would say that you ensure there's a CS there, so that you can be assured of quality. Thank you so much for your time. Now, remember to subscribe on this channel and share it to your friends and loved ones as well, so that they may know what to really look for when they are trying to study and see whether institutions are well and properly governed. Thank you so much for your time. See you next week.